Cheers. All right. So, George Armstrong Custer was an American commander during the Civil War. He's a very celebrated commander. He was in charge of a bunch of people during the American Indian War, and this was like a war campaign to basically force Indians onto reservations in the United States. So Custer was kind of known as this reckless dude, and he really didn't want to listen to superiors. He thought, like, I know what's best, I know what to do. And so anyway, he had this commander, this guy, General Alfred Terry, and that guy basically was like, don't go over there to the Great Plains, don't do it, you're gonna die, that's a terrible idea, don't do it. And then Custer was all like, yes sir, no problem, I'm not gonna do that, why would you think I would do that? And Custer deliberately disobeyed that order and went to confront the Lakota and the Northern Cheyenne and the Arapaho Indians to force them onto reservations, and they were just not having it. And so this was basically the Battle of Little Bighorn, or as it's more commonly known, Custer's Last Stand, because he died and he got all of his men killed. Like 250 plus guys died. But in 1982, he had his revenge, at least according to a company named Mystique.
Custers Revenge. Look at this box art. Why do they draw Custer like a cartoon character, but the Native American woman like a portrait? It's weird. Anyway, this is the game, and it is not for sale to minors, so don't try to get your hands on it if you're a minor. It's an adult video game cartridge. There you go. The game was packaged in a leather-bound case because you actually had to request it when you went into a store to get it. They never had it on display. Here's what the game looks like inside of the case. But enough talking about the case and the box, let's just take a look at it. This is the infamous Custer's Revenge. As you can see, you play as General Custer there on the left, wearing nothing but a cavalry hat, a scarf, and some boots. The object of the game is to make your way from the left side of the screen to the right, all the while avoiding arrows to have sex with a Native American woman who's tied to a cactus. Because the Atari 2600 had very crude graphics, a lot of the games were made with the expectation that you would have to use your imagination to figure out what some of the things on the screen were. But Custer's Revenge is the exception. There's no mistaking what's going on here. The game was highly controversial when it was released because it was designed for a video game system that was primarily played by kids, and many parents believed kids would get their hands on it despite being sold in packages labeled not for sale to minors. It was actually outlawed in Oklahoma City altogether. But controversy sells, and Custer's Revenge went on to sell about 80,000 copies, one of them ending up in my collection. Today, Custer's Revenge is often cited as one of the worst video games ever made. I'll let you be the judge. Let's take a look at Leisure Suit Larry and the Land of the Lounge Lizards next. It was released in 1987, and this is the VGA PC version. What's interesting about this game is the copy protection that Sierra and a lot of other developers used at the time. It included several color inserts that you had to read in order to find the answer to a challenge question that would pop up when you started the game. You get that answer wrong, and it would assume you pirated your copy of the software and send you back out to a DOS prompt. This game in particular comes with no less than 3 different inserts that you have to read through. At least they took the time to bold through some of the answers so you actually knew what you were looking for. But still, this is the original game manual here. I love this thing. It's thick, filled with all kinds of information that I would probably never ever use. Here are the actual diskettes. I don't know if a lot of people are still familiar with floppy disks, but man, I used the hell out of these things when I was a kid. One thing that I think is interesting is it comes with a startup disk, which if you had a lower spec computer at the time, you'd have to use that to actually boot into the game if you couldn't install it to a hard drive. Anyway, this last little insert here is kind of like a quick start guide, kind of walking you through some of the basic functions of the game. Pretty neat it came with all this stuff, especially in the digital download world we live in today. Let's take a look at some gameplay. Aside from the copy protection challenge questions, Leisure Suit Larry in the Land of the Lounge Lizards takes it a step further. It asks you questions to verify your age. Now, some of the answers I knew pretty easily, but some of them were so obscure I'm not sure that anyone would know the answer. Fail too many, and you guessed it, you get kicked out to the DOS prompt. Luckily, the newer versions you find on Steam don't come with the age verification questions, but don't even think about it, minors. If you know Sierra, you know they're mostly known for their point-and-click adventures like King's Quest and Police Quest, and Leisure Suit Larry is no exception to that. It's basically a point-and-click adventure game with some dirty toilet humor. You play as Larry Laffer, a lovable loser type who lives with his mother and is still a virgin. The object of the game is to find the woman of his dreams and lose his virginity. You have several commands at your disposal like most adventure games, including walk, grab, look, talk, lick, and unzip your zipper. If you have the patience to deal with the slow gameplay, you'll walk around and collect items to use on other objects in the environment, which will advance the story. The humor is just as juvenile as you think it would be, and kind of reminds me of like other raunchy 80s comedy movies of the day. And, you guessed it, the game was controversial when it was released, with some retail locations outright refusing to carry it. But despite the initial backlash, Leisure Suit Larry went on to spawn a cult following. This game in particular went on to be ported to several different systems, including the Apple II and the Atari ST and Amiga. Several years later, Leisure Suit Larry games are still being made. Finally, let's take a look at the Guy game. Released for the original Xbox and PlayStation 2 in 2004, the Guy game is a live-action trivia game where you try to guess the answer to a question and how a contestant is going to answer a question to unlock uncensored footage of the contestant flashing the crowd. This game garnered a lot of controversy after one of the contestants sued the developers and Sony and Microsoft because she was 17 at the time the footage was filmed and she wasn't informed the footage would be used in a video game. A judge issued a restraining order preventing the game from being sold, but despite this, new and used copies can still be found relatively easily. This game isn't particularly rare or expensive, but perhaps that's because no one wants it. The Guy game is basically a cross between You Don't Know Jack and Girls Gone Wild, made all the more worse by the horrible, horrible announcers and host, Matt Sadler.
Hi, Kelly. Where are you from?
Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. H-Town. What do you do in Houston?
Well, I live there. I'm from there. I go to school in Arkansas.
Oh, you go to school in Arkansas. Well, I'm very sorry.
I know.
Yes.
I am too.
How long have you been in Arkansas?
I'm a freshman.
And you still have all your teeth. That's great.
All my teeth, yes.
And that's what you have to put up with if you want to win. And by win, I mean see nudity. Each round you'll get asked a trivia question. You'll need to answer that correctly and answer whether or not the contestant got it right or wrong.
Find out right now, right here, how much Kelly knows. It's a very easy question. It's a 1 in 4 answer, okay? The question is, on a standard deck of playing cards, which suit has the Suicide King?
I don't know if she knows the answer. What do you think?
Spades.
Kelly, I really wanted you to get that. It's Hearts. Hearts is the Suicide King. All right, guys, I need a lot of noise. I need you to cheer. 1.
Everything's censored like that unless you get enough points to unlock nudity, which isn't likely in a single playthrough. You'll also be forced to play this horrible skee-ball minigame that controls as badly as it looks in an effort to get more points. It goes on for entirely too long and kind of seems like it was thrown in there to make this feel like more of a legitimate game. What do you think about the Guy game? Well, that's it for this episode of Retro Buyer's Guide. What are some controversial adult video games that you know about? Let me know of them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you again in a week with a new video. Until then, happy collecting.